Welcome to Uncopyable Women in Business. I'm Kay Miller, also known as Muffler Mama. I've been the #1 salesperson in a male-dominated industry, a successful entrepreneur for over 30 years, and now my mission is to help you build a business and brand nobody else can compete with. If you're ready to break out of the pack and create your own uncopyable advantage, stay tuned. My guests and I are here to help. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Dr. Nelva Lee. Dr. Nelva is a woman who has spent her life seeing gaps and building solutions, from healthcare to vocational education to serving on Georgia's Department of Community Health. She's now running for Georgia Superintendent of Schools, and she brings a powerful perspective on access, opportunity, and what our schools and our communities really need. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's a lot. And as I said to you before we recorded, I feel like you should be 80 years old, but you're clearly maybe half of them. So I'm in awe. And we talked a little bit before we recorded about, your path and how you got from healthcare, your education, to more vocational. So can you just fill us in on that?
Most definitely. So it really became a need for myself. So I have a doctorate in healthcare administration. At the time when I started my vocational school, I was the director of patient advocacy at the Grady Health System, which is a large public hospital here in the state of Georgia. It's actually one of the largest in the Southeast. And based on the civil rights laws of 1964, you have to provide interpreting services to any limited English proficient patient. And, at Grady being a large urban hospital, we had a lot of limited English proficient patients. So we had interpreters, but they weren't qualified. They weren't trained and qualified as per the laws of, the civil rights laws. And so when we went around looking for training programs, it was very difficult. And this was back in the early 2000s, but it was very difficult to be able to find them and to bring them to Georgia. And so I went to my CEO and I said, hey, this is a problem. We have all these interpreters, but they're not trained and they're not qualified. Can we start our own training program? He passed on the idea, but because I'd already been working as an adjunct professor and I had been trained by DeVry University for curriculum development, I went ahead and started my own program. So I saw the need, right? I was the recipient of that need, and I had the skill set to be able to fill that need. And so that's how I started the Meteor Technologies vocational school.
I love that you had your radar up. Like you said, it kind of was, not only a need, it was a problem for you. It was something that you really needed to be fixed, and nobody was fixing it. So Dr. Nelva to the rescue.
One of the things I tell my staff all the time, don't bring me problems without a solution. And so I practice what I preach.
Yeah, you sure do. You sure do. And that's probably why you are running, and I'm sure successfully, for the Georgia Superintendent of Schools. She's going to share how to support that and learn more at the end. But so again, you had your radar up, there was a problem, and you created a solution. I'm thinking about our listeners, and, how do you spot one of those gaps? You experienced it personally. I guess it's just being aware, would you say, or trying to be the solution for a problem?
Definitely. I think a lot of times we, a good default for many of us, and I'm guilty of it as well, is to complain about a problem. But if you're saying to yourself, let's see if I can come up with a solution, even if you're not necessarily the person that's going to solve the problem, at least you can bring a possible solution to your boss. Like initially it wasn't really, I wasn't trying to solve the problem myself. I thought this was an opportunity for Grady, my organization that I presented, to be a solution to this issue. So I brought it to my superior. He passed on it, but I still realized that this was a need. And so I just decided to put my head in the ring, if you will.
Well, that's a great lesson in perseverance, but you've had a lot, I'm sure, to get where you are, and overcoming challenges. And I think sometimes we do, like you said, we complain about something, or just kind of feel defeated and we're just like, okay, well, it sure would be nice. Well, you went out and made it nice. So, and you didn't just teach classes. You were teaching around an outcome that you wanted to create. So, how did you decide how this outcome would be created?
Correct. So again, I was trained by DeVry University. I had been teaching healthcare administration courses as an adjunct for several years by then, about 10 years. And so I had been trained in how to develop curriculum. So I didn't just throw some classes in there. I wanted to make sure that the curriculum that I created was college level, was rigorous. And so that is what I did. I wanted to ensure that whoever came through my program was fully prepared to be a medical interpreter. And this was before certification. So now, and I became a part of the separate certification efforts after this, was a subject matter expert. And because of all of my efforts in that, became the first chair of the National Board of Certification. But as I mentioned, when you see a need, you should try to provide a solution. One of my favorite quotes from Gandhi is, "Be the change that you wish to see in the world."
Yep. I'm looking at the man in the mirror.
Yes.
That's right. We can all, and especially in this day and age, the world needs improving, and that's only going to happen.
You roll us.
We say we're going to be part of that solution. So let's see. What else do I want to talk about? So the client, how did you attract? We talked about this a little bit. How did you market your business and get students to come in and pay for this program?
So marketing is always tricky. You have something that that the industry needs, but it's like, how do I get the word out, right? About this product that's going to fill your need. And so initially what we did was we marketed it through the associations. So there's lots of different regional and statewide interpreting associations. So we marketed through them. And that got us some traction. We would go to the different association conferences, and that got us some traction. But really what really helped us off, it was PPC, the Google ads. And
pay-per-click. In case somebody doesn't know, pay-per-click. Good old Google ads, yeah?
So you basically load up all the different possible search words, right, that someone would use to find your product. And when they click on that, they go to your ad, and then your ad basically either takes them to making, straight to enrolling, or in our case, we had them speak to someone before they enroll.
So you say we, so you were not all in this all alone. Were you partnering?
Oh, no. Gosh, you have to have a team.
So tell me about your team. No man is an island, and apparently no woman is either.
No. We had a team of, we call the ones that took those calls, we call them program specialists. And so we trained them on, what to ask, because we didn't want just anyone going through our program. They had to be fully bilingual, and we trained them on what questions to ask for that. And depending on whether or not they had experience in healthcare, they were either sent to either our shorter course, our 60-hour course, or our longer diploma program. So if they didn't have any experience in healthcare, we wanted them to go through the longer program. So it was just a process of finding the right people, training them properly. And then, as I mentioned, I didn't do everything on my own. I had live session coordinators. And basically what they did is vetted people while they were in the classroom, making sure that they were actually learning the material and being able to.
Gosh. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Okay, let's put it on silent instead of ring. Okay.
And so our live session facilitators would vet while the students were going through the program, ensuring that they were actually learning the language, not the fluency part or the language, but learning medical terms, right? Because medical terms is its own language. And so medical jargon, making sure that they learn the confidentiality, how to properly memorize. There was a whole process to becoming a medical interpreter. So we were able to take them from start to finish. And once certification came on board, we also provided them with certification prep and things to that nature.
So it's interesting. I'm on day, I think, 19 of Spanish through Duolingo.
Oh, don't do Duolingo. That's not going to teach you any Spanish.
Go ahead.
My recommendation, if you really want to be conversational, try something like Pimsleur. So Duolingo makes you think that you're learning the language, but you're not really learning.
Wait, what is that? Pimsleur? I don't know what that is.
Pimsleur. Just Google it. Pimsleur.
Okay.
It teaches you language the way that you learned it when you were a baby. And that's conversationally back and forth. And so if you're really wanting to conversate when you go to another country, which is the goal for many people when they're learning another language, so I would highly recommend that. And then you can do your own version of immersion. And that is listening to radio in that language, watching Netflix only in that language, things like that.
Well, I have several friends who are Spanish speakers. One, it turns out she got her doctorate, her degree in Spanish. But then I have a couple friends, a neighbor and one problem I have is I can't roll my R's. But she said
it's okay. There's very few words that you have to do that. So.
Yeah. So, but Duolingo, I have to say, it's just a 10-minute a day fun thing. And yes, I think I'm learning some words. Manzanas is apples. Okay.
It makes you feel that you're learning. And I'll tell you this because I love learning new languages. And so when I went to Italy a few years ago, I decided to do it through Duolingo, knowing that Pimsleur is the superior. I was like, let me try Duolingo. I hear all this stuff about it. And I actually did it for like 3 months straight. I had gotten all these to the high levels, feeling very confident in myself. Went to Italy. It was horrible. I couldn't hold a conversation. Whereas Pimsleur, about 10 years prior, I did Pimsleur for French and I was actually able to conversate. So it's a completely different process. Duolingo makes you feel really good about yourself, but you're not making any progress.
Darn it. I'm so disappointed because I feel like I'm brilliant after 19 days. It's like, wow, people should study your big brain. You're so smart.
Yeah,
like
it does a really good job of making you feel really confident. It does.
Yeah. I mean, they do gamify it and, you have to be incentivized to do any learning. Right, I'm going to check that out.
Yes.
And so who knows? I want to go to Mexico and be able to converse.
Yeah.
It's just the way I'm talking. I do talk to people who tried to learn English. And the way I just said, I'm going to learn Spanish. I'm going to, it's all so fast and blended together. And that's how I think Spanish speaking people would say, I need to go to school.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm getting off track.
As I mentioned, do a version of immersion.
Yes.
And that's kind of forcing your brain to think in that language. Just listen to radio stations in that language, watch Netflix. It forces you to just kind of like have to switch, do a switch in the language department.
Very good. And I know you are an expert on learning and how to really impact not just what you know, but what you can communicate and say and all of those things. So I feel like you have pretty good credibility. Good credit.
Oh, thank you.
So do you know, I know you're not doing this school. It's morphed into a different kind of company. Do you still use Google Paperclip? Because I'm curious, we've used it years ago. We tried it, but we haven't used it since. Is it still effective now as of 2026? Do you know?
So I will say back in 2020, they changed their algorithms and it started really declining in its effectiveness. So one of the reasons why we're just focused now on the agency is because of that. It just became very expensive to find our customers with using Google. And so we're no longer using that. And so, as I mentioned to you earlier, we're no longer providing the training program. We are focused specifically on the agency, and that's B2B, which is a whole different way to market to B2B than when you marketing to B2C, right? Business to consumer versus business to business.
Right. So now you have an agency that's B2B. Right. That's always been my world.
Yes.
So explain how that agency serves customers then.
Right.
So, your business customers.
So during the course program, many of our alumni would say, why don't you start your own agency? Right. Because they would graduate and then they have to look for jobs, right, with other companies. And they encouraged me to start my own agency. So we finally did back in 2017. And I have over 15 clients that provide both a medical and legal interpreting. And so now that's all we do. We provide AI as well as human interpreters in over 200 languages to include American Sign Language.
Wow. I always marvel at 200 languages. Who knows how, maybe you know probably how many there are total. All these languages be dreamed up. I just find it so fascinating.
Right.
The only language I know fluently besides English is Oppenglapish, where you put op before every sounding vowel. So it'd be Dapa, I can say Napo, Lapi, okay, I screwed it up.
And where does that
Lapi.
And where is that language spoken? Or is that just like a fun
It's a
language?
silly thing. It's a silly thing that I apparently don't remember anymore because I screwed it up.
I love it.
It was just fun. Our secret language as a kid. So you have an agency. Let's talk about now how you got interested in running for the superintendent of schools.
Got it. So I have always had an interest in community service. I've been on boards of various nonprofits over the years. And as you mentioned in my bio, in the intro, I was appointed to the Department of Community Health by Governor Kemp. And so I've always had an advocacy, community service take on my life, if you will. Again, that's because that's just how I'm built. I tell people, when I see a problem, I want to be part of the solution. I can't solve the world's problems, but I can definitely be a part of a solution, within my kind of sphere of influence, if you will. When it comes
corner of the world,
in my little corner of the world, when it comes to education, not only did I run successfully for 20 years a vocational school, but I also homeschooled my own child because my oldest, he was on the spectrum. And we really had a difficult time, especially when he was younger. I homeschooled him through 5th grade, finding a good learning environment for him. Okay. And a lot of people, that have children on the spectrum or ADHD, you name it, or even very gifted children, they have a really difficult time finding a learning environment that is a good match where their child can thrive. And so one of the initiatives that I'm running for is to provide more options to parents through school choice. The other thing, as I mentioned, I was the CEO of a vocational school. And so I like to see every graduate graduate not only with the high school diploma, but also with the trade certificate. And I believe that's going to open up so many doors, allow graduates to finish high school workforce ready, right? And where they're not necessarily dependent on having to get a college degree. They can if they want to, if that is definitely, in a career field that needs it, but it's not a requirement. And the other issue is here in Georgia, we are just falling behind. The current superintendent is going on 12 years in office, and we are just 38th out of 50, right? That's a decline under his tenure. 70% of our 4th graders are not proficient in reading. That's a decline under his tenure. 76% of our 8th graders are not proficient in math. That's a decline under his tenure. So something's got to change. So as I mentioned, hey, I could complain about it or I can do something about it.
Well, it seems like you are really the perfect person to do something like this and highly qualified, seeing things from the inside out and your own family. You have a child who's got, I don't know if it's special need, but it's something that you're not going to get just going through the motions at school. I really like your take on a trade vocation. We, through the years, my husband and I with our business, have done a lot of work with manufacturers, and it has become so hard to find people to work in the trades.
Yes.
The other thing is I live in Seattle, layoffs at Microsoft, layoffs at Amazon, more layoffs at Amazon. To me, I was just thinking about this with my daughter actually works at a golf course and she sells club memberships. And I think that is a role that will be, she'll be protected when the AI changes everything. But I have a friend whose son is a graphic designer, and I have all my designs done AI now. I don't hire people from Fiverr. I don't hire graphic designers. It's just, I just have to say, I really love that trade school angle. And as you said, you can get a college degree. Although one of my friend's daughters, I saw her post on Instagram, She's 38 years old, and she said, just paid off my college student loans.
Yes, it's horrible. You basically finish college with the mortgage. Yes. And here's the thing. We talked about the AI. We need electricians and welders and plumbers because all the baby boomers are retiring and there's not enough people trained in those trades anymore. And these are AI proof trades. You're not going to have AI come in and do your plumbing. Trust me. Okay.
I know that exactly. You've got to think about that because even, and then there are other jobs, which are physical jobs, but I was in Arizona. I think we have them now here too, but self-driving Uber things are called Waymo. And they're Waymo convenient or something, and truck drivers. So I think it's really good. Just trades like you're talking about, things that cannot be done by AI, and probably every system will have more AI. So it's I'm pretty into AI. I can't say I'm an expert.
As I mentioned, my company, we do AI for simple interpretations, but remember, for complex things, you're going to need a human interpreter. And so we provide both. So we're not saying we're gonna bury our heads in the sand and say we're not doing AI. We're embracing the future, but letting our customers know that guess what, you're still gonna need a human interpreter for those hard conversations.
Right, I know, and especially in medical field,
medical and legal
and legal.
Yes,
yeah. You need a divorce, and you're going in. I don't know. AI is not going to understand, and.
Not all the cultural nuances, it's a lot that AI still can do. Maybe in the future, but they can't do it now.
Yeah, I don't believe that AI will ever be able to handle it all. I don't know. I am a boomer, and I couldn't be retired if I wanted to, but I'm sure you're shocked to hear I'm even a boomer. Look so young. But yeah, it's going to be a very nuanced change. I've done writing already, and I write a story. Our Seattle Mariners almost made it to the World Series, which was really sad.
Yes.
So I gave AI a little set of viewpoints, facts, and asked AI to write a story. And then I wrote the story and I put it in, and AI's ChatGPT said, I can't write a story like that. And, I've never done those things. I've never felt the reverberations of a stadium. Yeah. So, I actually don't really have any more questions, but I'd like you to tell me, what have I not asked? That's what I like to ask AI. What have I not asked that you think would be helpful to?
Well, just a few little things. I do have a website, drnelvalee.com, that has books I've written. I've written several books. It also has links to my social media handles. So if any one of your listeners would like to kind of delve more into my life and the things I've done, they're welcome to do that there. And they can also, listen to my speech and all the other podcast interviews. I have them all on there as well. But for those that might be interested in my other company that I have, which is Uncopyable, I am.
Wait, can you say that a little more clearly? That kind of went by because I know what it is, but it's hard to understand.
It's called Concrete Build, and it's a it's a real estate backed cryptocurrency. And the reason is because I'm also very passionate about housing and all of the, the problems that have come because of private investment, buying up apartments and houses and then jacking up rent, where people that are working 2-3 jobs can't afford rent. And so I say that my logo is, if private companies broke it, private companies can fix it. And so what we do is we purchase apartment buildings, but turn them into condos and then do rent to own. And that brings down the payments and makes it much more affordable. But because we tokenize these properties, then we can also turn around and provide it as REITs and through our cryptocurrency.
So I need you to drill down in that and explain it. Dumb it down for me.
The tokenization is basically like providing an NFT. So you've heard all the rage about NFTs a few years ago. That's all that it is. It's just you're tokenizing a real asset. So people did NFTs for paintings and they did NFTs for, music, but this is an NFT, if you will, for a property. And so you tokenize the property and then you can basically And it basically is just like a REIT. So you know about REITs, right? Where you have a lot of different people investing in a property, right? It's kind of
I
like
don't know.
shares.
What is that word? REIT?
Yeah. REIT, real estate investment. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hate to say that, but I don't know.
That's fine. That's fine. So REIT, a lot of your listeners might know about them, but usually they're very, you have to have like hundreds of thousands of dollars to participate in them. But if you do it through a crypto, just a few hundred dollars, you can participate and purchase a piece of real estate. So it democratizes, right? Real estate investment. And so on both ends, we're helping the end customer with lower affordable housing. And on the investor side, we're helping them be able to afford it because it's much more affordable through crypto.
Well, I'll put all these links. I'll have my assistant Rochelle, lovely Rochelle, put the link in there. I hope someday you will allow science to dissect your brain and find out what's going on in there. It's mine's about ready to explode.
I will have to be dead first, but yes.
Oh, yeah, I know. And that'll probably be a long, long time. We're living forever, practically. So the last thing I want to ask you is about your faith, because you have written some books and you are there. I don't know if they're all Christian based or focused.
Most of them are. I do have a business book for Uncopyable, so I kind of explain what crypto is and all of that. Okay. But that's probably one of the few. I have a couple of business books, but most of the books that you'll find on drnelvalee.com, they're all my Christian-based books. And basically what I call them is my written testimonies. So if you're of the believer of the Christian faith, you know the scripture that says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. And so that's what that's all about. Every time I go through a major challenge, I feel the need to let others know how I went through it. And so maybe they don't have to make the same mistakes, or they can learn from the ways that I was able to overcome them.
Have you always been a strong Christian person of faith your whole life?
For most of my life, yes. I became a Christian when I was 7. I did have a prodigal daughter experience in my early 20s. I have to say it. But yes, I've been a Christian for most of my life.
And that sounds like it's a very strong foundation for you to have that belief and some extra help.
Definitely. Yes. I don't think I could do half of the things that I've talked about today without my belief and my strong faith, for sure.
Dr. Nelva, this has been a very interesting conversation. You listeners really got a lot of great stuff, that expands our world and our horizons. I want to learn from you, which I feel like I have. I want my listeners to learn, but I just also want to blow people's minds. Open us, because I think we do. We end up getting too narrow a focus, and the world is so big. So I will just end by saying thank you so very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Uncopyable Women in Business. If you enjoyed it, please follow, rate, and review the show. And be sure to visit beuncopyable.com/K. Always remember, be uncopyable.